This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good afternoon. This is, or evening or morning. This is Kelly Guerrero. I'm the Director of Community Outreach for NorCal Bully Breed Rescue. Welcome to Foster Orientation. You should have received a link to the history of the NorCal Bully Breed Rescue, which would kind of explain how we got to where we are now with our dog rescue efforts. So a little bit about myself. I've been doing grassroots rescue in my neighborhood for a few years, have worked with several rescues and several shelters, and have really found a home with NorCal. Their structure's tight. They have really strict protocols, but the rewards are really beneficial because you really feel like you're with a group that knows what they're doing. I cannot say that about every other rescue I've worked with. So big learning experience ahead for you since you're looking at fostering. Say goodbye to being a dog person and hello to the rescue community. You will learn how little you knew as a confident dog lover, and how much there is to learn. And if you go into this with an open mind, you'll be fine. Huge note. You should have also received the foster handbook. If you didn't, go get in touch with your mentor immediately because you really have to read that and respond that you acknowledge all of the rules in there. This overview is not a replacement for the handbook, but it's some explanation around some of what's in the handbook and some of what's not. So our culture, hopefully you're fine with a lot of profanity because it's comic relief. If swearing offends you, I can tell you right now, you need to let your mentor know this might not be a good long-term fit for you. We have a lot of stress that needs to be relieved. There's a lot of comedy, there's a lot of fun teasing, but you will see, especially when you graduate to our private Facebook page, that it's very colorful. It's all in good fun, but it's definitely a kind of in your face culture. You will get corrected if you make a mistake. You will be well aware that you made a mistake and asked to not let it happen again. You're dealing with little critters' lives, and so as long as you can go, okay, I understand, I didn't know, and I won't let that happen again, and you just improve your knowledge base and keep doing things well, and you're open to criticism, it'll be fine. If you're the type of person that can't handle, as a grown adult, finding out that you've done something wrong, this is definitely not, dog rescue is not an environment for you, let alone NorCal. Um, the rescue offers full transparency and honesty if something goes wrong. If it's Anna and Leslie, who have both founded the rescue, Leslie runs it. Anna's her right hand is a complete understatement. But if you don't want to know details, again, not the right rescue for you. They kind of let us know everything. We know what happened to the detail that they know with the dogs that come to us. We hear a lot of gruesome details about shelters. And if somebody makes a mistake, if one of them makes a mistake, we hear about it. They're honest about their own mistakes. All of that being said, it's a very supportive foster culture. Other fosters are here to make sure that collectively as a family, we succeed. And so it is just very honest. We want people to learn from mistakes quickly and not repeat them. A lot of swearing, and again, all of that is bundled in like a really supportive family. So let's go through some of the tough subjects first. And I do this specifically because it's not all sparkles and rainbows and puppy breath. There are some tough things in rescue that you will get exposed to. And if somebody doesn't tell you this up front, I feel that you should know it. And I'm going to go through it. Now, if you can get through this section and hang in there, it gets better, but I thought I'd start with the difficult stuff and work towards the cute stuff, which ends with puppies. So we are not anti-shelter, but a lot of people perceive us that way because we call shelters out when they screw up. Shelters have what's called a rescue only list, and those are dogs that cannot be adopted by the public and can only be saved if they're rescued. And if, for example, a rescue neglects to send that, or if a shelter neglects to send that out to the local rescues, every dog on that list is going to get euthanized without getting pulled. And if we find out that they stopped sending it, we get pretty pissed, and we'll let them know that they've screwed up. Um, Shelters have rules they're supposed to abide by, but very rarely are they held accountable when they don't do it. And so if we don't hold them accountable, no one else does. And sometimes we do that in the face of public opinion, and we're really brutally honest about it. But we also have shelters who know us, will text us when there's a dog that they think we can help, trust us, and work really well with us. So just because you might see us put a shelter on blast, or just kind of call them out on social media, does not mean we're anti-shelter. But just be aware of that. So if you're closely connected with a shelter, or you love a shelter, you're probably going to find out things about them that are contrary to everything you thought. But again, go in it with an open mind. This rescue does not lie. They are, again, pretty brutally honest about stuff, but it's just important to start there. Second, especially when you graduate to the private foster page, you will see the worst of the worst. So this poor little dog had horrible mange. He came to us because he went to an inexperienced foster at a local shelter who reached out to NorCal and said, I can't handle this. This is way out of my league. And we took him because we take medical rescues. He looks like a beautiful Doberman Pinscher now. But I mean, we see what happens to like these helpless, neglected animals daily. And so it's not easy, but you're actually in a position to do something about it, and that feels good. So pace yourself. Maybe every time you see a notification, you don't look at it right away. We do want you looking at anything posted on the page, but make sure you're in a good headspace when you do that. Some of it's really hard. Big deal, safety first. So if there's a rule, it's probably because something went very wrong. And if you need to know why that rule's in place, go ahead and ask. But you may find out that it's because someone once upon a time didn't crate their foster dog, and it went downstairs where the two residence dogs maimed it and almost killed it. So when we say that you have to crate the dogs when you're not home, it's because something that bad happened. And most of the time, it's not our foster dogs that are the ones that cause the problem. It's the resident dogs that don't want the intruder there yet because they haven't been properly introduced. So mandatory rules around that when a dog gets to you. The dog needs time to decompress from the shelter. This is the one thing that a lot of rescues and shelters don't insist upon. That dog needs to learn the rules of the house. They need to build a relationship with you. They do not need to meet your other dogs. It needs to be a slow introduction to your home. We have a process called crating and rotating. It's basically a switcheroo where if your resident dogs aren't crate trained, that's not the end of the world. You use your bedroom as the crate, and you just make sure that the door is completely shut. The foster dog has to get crate trained. So when your dogs are out in the whole house, the foster dog is in a different room in a crate. When the foster dog gets quality time with you, your dogs go in your bedroom with the door shut where they can't get to the foster dog. You have to do this for 2 weeks. And I know you're probably sitting there going, oh my God, I can't do that. But trust me, you can. There's over 70 of us that have learned how to do this. And once you get used to it after the first 3 or 4 days, it's really not that big of a deal. It is a lot to adjust to, but it's doable and it keeps everybody safe. And that's why we do it. Our trainer will come help introduce your foster dog to your resident dog or dogs. We don't ever let our dogs go nose to nose with your neighbor's dog, a dog in a pet store, a dog in Home Depot. They can get within 6 feet of them at the most, but they don't ever go nose to nose. They don't get to sniff each other. And that's usually because the other dog is a huge unknown to us and we can't accept the liability. If a fight starts, we could lose the whole rescue, whether it's our dog that started it or not. And again, usually the foster dogs are the better behaved ones in the situation. So the other reason that we do the 2 weeks is quarantine. We just had a case where we brought in 5 puppies from a shelter who had no symptoms for about 7 days, aside from what looked like a little bit of kennel cough and mange. Well, it turns out they had a horrible case of a really, really almost deadly form of bacteria. We almost lost two of them. And then they spread it to another dog in a foster home because that foster in that case didn't ignore the quarantine rule, but we thought we were really close to that 2-week mark by the time some of the other dogs started interacting with it. And they had an immunocompromised dog in their home that had just gone through surgery. So another puppy unrelated to this litter got sick too. Everybody survived, they're fine, but if it were parvo, it would have been so much worse. And there's a lot of reasons to create and rotate and keep that 2-week separation. It's not optional, it's not optional at all. So just be aware of that, but you'll get used to it and you'll be a total pro, even though it seems intimidating and kind of crazy. Also, your resident dogs must be current on their vaccines. That's in case a dog comes in, like kennel cough is a good example. Your dog stands a chance of not getting kennel cough if you bring in a dog with kennel cough, and kennel cough is really common from shelter dogs. So collars, tags, and leashes, this is a big one. This is one that a lot of people get their hands smacked over. If you send us in a really cute video and your dog does not have on its collar and its tag, you are going to get called on it. And it's really a big concern because those dogs don't get microchipped until they get spayed and neutered most of the time. And so if your foster dog gets loosed and it's not microchipped, we'll probably never see that dog again unless you have amazing neighbors and somebody grabs it right away. So the tag, the NorCal Bully Breed tag, has to have be on the collar all times. Also, no retractable leashes. Our trainer Linda recommends a 4-foot leash or a 6-foot leash. If you need a training collar, like if you have someone who's horrible on a leash, let us know. But again, make sure the collar and the tag are always on. If you give the dog a bath, put an alarm on your phone and make sure you put the collar back on. If its neck is a little wet when the collar goes back on, it'll be fine. What's worse is if the dog gets out and that's your excuse. Vaccinations and heartworm. Okay, again, not optional, especially the DHPP vaccine for puppies, which protects them against parvo. It's a whole series of boosters across, I think it's 7 weeks to the last shot is at 4 months old. You have to keep a schedule of when your dog's shots are due and follow it. That helps you coordinate with Leslie to get in touch with her for the shots. And same thing with heartworm. So the dog will get heartworm right when it gets here, and you just have to keep it on your calendar and give a few days notice before you need it. Don't surprise her the day before, but just say, hey, Leslie, can I meet up with you this weekend? I need a heartworm for my dog. They will need to know the weight of your dog. You can go into a Pet Food Express or many places, or even your local vet's office, and try to get the weight if you don't have it, but oftentimes it's on their paperwork from the shelter. Parvo. I have had one experience with one adult dog, which is really, really rare, with parvo, and it was awful. That dog survived. We have an amazing vet through who runs For Our Friends Rescue. It's Dr. Jean Rabinowitz, who is kind of a parvo genius because she saves a lot of puppies that get parvo because she keeps them hydrated and keeps nutrition in them when their bodies are failing them. Anytime you see a puppy out on the street walking, it's a huge no-no. So if you get puppies, they do not leave your home and your backyard ever. They don't get to go on the front lawn. You can take them to like a Home Depot if you put a blanket down in the cart and you don't let them touch the ground and you follow the rules on socialization, like anybody who touches them has to use hand sanitizer before they can pet them. So if you need to socialize the puppy and the trainer's approved you taking them out, that's fine, but they don't get to touch the ground outside of your house. And that's because parvo we've heard of cases where it was still contagious on the ground 2 years after a home was cleared of it. If you somehow get a dog that has parvo, the vet will work with you. You don't get to break any rules or get creative at all. And you cannot take that dog on a walk in public until the vet actually gives you the all clear. There's a lot of tests and treatment that go along with this. But parvo is no joke. We don't see it very often, in all fairness, but it's something for you to be aware of. So with our culture, it's really not about us. We care about each other. We end up making friends outside of the rescue, lifelong relationships that are really beneficial. But it really is about the dogs. The dogs always come first. And you will notice this specifically with Leslie and Anna, that, there aren't a lot of hugs given out with people who work 65 plus hours a week and are constantly dealing with the worst of humanity. Anna manages the Facebook Messenger page, and I've seen the behind the scenes of that, and I would lose my mind. I mean, the stupidity that comes through that and the negligence that she sees. I think we had a post recently where somebody says, my husband is really concerned because his friend isn't taking care of his dogs. He's got 20 of them in a very small kennel space. And it's like, okay, at what point was 20 the magic number? Was 4 wasn't too many, 6 wasn't too many? And it's just like the stuff that they see and they're exposed to requires them to put up a buffer emotionally, so they're not ever in a position to come around and give everybody hugs and give us attaboys and make everybody feel better, because they are constantly focused on rescuing dogs, and dogs that are major medical rescues, and they have to worry about fundraising, and they have to worry about the treatment plans and the things that these dogs need, and trying to develop good relationships with shelters. So does that mean you're not taken care of? No, but it means you're going to be disappointed if you expect Leslie and Anna to be all warm and fuzzy with you every time they talk to you, because they just don't have the time. So your fellow fosters are who your support system are, and especially your mentor. All of the mentors that we have really love the fact that we're getting a new foster in, and we do truly care. And up to Anna and Leslie, your willingness to foster is more than appreciated, but just don't take it personally if you're not getting the attention that you thought might be there. I don't know of a rescue or a shelter that has someone in a leadership position that can do any of that. So this is not even specific to NorCal. So what does that mean for you? If you learn and you follow the rules and you just observe and you figure out, okay, that's how this works, let me work within those confines, instead of expecting us to do it your way, which won't happen, then you'll be fine. If you can just kind of bend to the way we do it and kind of learn the ropes, you'll be good. And most importantly, be a good dog parent. So communication rules, this is a big one. So Leslie and Anna, like I said, they're putting in 60 plus 70, 80 hours a week. They travel all over the state and go and drive and pick up dogs. So they have hours where it's okay to text Leslie or message Anna on Messenger, although really, we really want you putting most of the primary communication through to Leslie. Texting is fine between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Once you graduate to the foster Facebook page, you can post on there whenever you want, and you would need to tag Leslie for anything about the dog. But most of the time, you're just going to text your mentor. And I mean, unless your mentor tells you texting after 6 p.m. is okay, try to stick to those rules. If it's an emergency, and you've looked in the guidebook on what an emergency is, then it's okay to text. We want you to text if it fits the emergency criteria. If the dog's lethargic, if there's blood coming out of everywhere, which again, we don't really have those happen very often, but then you would call. But other than that, you don't do it. Now, you're also responsible for reading everything that comes in on the Facebook page. And once you're comfortable and you feel like you know the ropes, comment. We want an active page. If that page goes inactive, we'll lose it. And also, email is okay. If you have kind of a detailed situation with your dog and you're not super worried, but you think Leslie should know about it, go ahead and send her an email and just send her all the details. That's easier for her to read through, and then she can just send you a quick response and give you some guidance if needed. Okay, pet care versus rescue care versus shelter care. This is where I think it's the hardest for anybody with a really nurturing spirit. The funds with NorCal, they're not unlimited. We have to fundraise for everything we do. And that means that anytime there's a little owie on the dog, or the dog's not quite acting like themselves, or maybe has diarrhea or has vomited twice, or you can tell that they ate a plastic bag, and so then you're on stomach obstruction watch for 10 hours. We don't rush dogs in the way you would rush in your pet. Now, it's a step above shelter care, and the example I'll give you there is if a dog looks like it might have been hit by a car and it's limping, but it's otherwise not showing signs of trauma. And you as a good Samaritan take it into a shelter because you know they have a vet there. It might be 72 hours before the vet can get that to that dog because they do not work overnight. We know of some shelters with amazing vet staff and even the best of the best. Sometimes a dog that's not in critical condition has to wait until they can get to them. So we're quite a few steps above that, but we're not the same as you taking care of your own pet. So you cannot rush a dog to the vet without calling Leslie and expect to get reimbursed. Protocol is clearly explained in the handbook. You also have to go to our approved vets if there was even a chance of getting reimbursed. So you don't get to just decide, oh, I'm going to my vet, I like my vet, and then tell Leslie she has to pay for it. It doesn't work that way. It's our approved vets when approved by Leslie. Unless the dog is literally crashing and you have to rush it to one of our approved vets, in which case you would call Leslie and your mentor. So setting up your home and routine. So this is the biggest change for you. You have to always crate the dog when you're not home. Always crate the dog during meals. After the foster dog meets your resident dog with the help of the trainer, you have to make sure that there aren't any treats or toys to compete over. The dogs will be fine, especially if they're playing with each other. But that's where we have seen problems happen is the minute they resource guard or start to compete over those items, somebody can nip at the other one, and if they don't back off, you can have a problem on your hands. Really, really, really big, hard rule here. All of these are, but this is a big deal. Don't ever leave your children unattended with a foster dog ever. I'm sure you have a brood of angels under your roof that love dogs, but we don't know the history of these foster dogs. And so it's just not worth it on either side for the dog or for your child if something doesn't go well and you're not there to tell us what happened. We have fosters who introduce their dogs, the foster dogs, very carefully to their babies, and then we can find out this dog is fantastic with small children, but they don't leave the dogs alone with their kids because it's just unacceptable. It should be a general rule for all dogs and children, not just foster dogs. But that's where we see a lot of dogs end up euthanized in shelters is because quote unquote the dog nipped at their kid, but the reality is nobody was there to actually see what happened, and that happens a lot. Okay, so we're kind of through the scary stuff. So now we get into the cuter stuff. You've got a dog. So this this is what I call 72 hours of holy shit, what did I do? So what tends to happen when you get a dog straight from the shelter is day one, the dog is going to check out your whole house. In my case, it usually takes a dump on my kitchen floor. And then it climbs on the couch next to me and it's just happy. It misses being in a home. It's so happy it's not in the shelter, and it falls asleep and it's snoring and it's farting, and you can just see the stress just completely wash off of this dog. And then you go to sleep, it sleeps the whole night on a dog bed, and everybody's happy, and you feel like, oh wow, I've done a good thing. This is like my own dodo video. Well, then you wake up on day two, and you may have had a shoe eaten in the middle of the night if you weren't smart and crated your dog, which you're required to do. You might wake up to a sweet little baby that's the easiest dog you've ever had in your house, but you may actually, in fact, wake up to a demon. Okay, is the dog actually horrible? Most likely not. They're like kids, they don't understand the rules. And consistency is the best thing you can offer. So, um, always take the food to the crate, feed them in the crate, always give them treats in the crate, always take them to go on the same walking routine or potty routine, make them be a part of your routine, not the other way around. And within 72 hours, they will figure it out. But at the second morning, midday, second day, you're probably going to be completely freaked out. Just know that you will be and know that it gets a lot better. So don't freak out. and just be consistent, and the dog will pick up on it. Dogs like routine and they like consistency and they find comfort in that, just like a lot of children do. Food and treats. Okay, there is a handout about this. Put it on your kitchen with a magnet. You have to make sure, number one, you do not overfeed your dog. It's not healthy, especially because we do a lot of medical rescues, for you to have an overweight dog. And it's also unacceptable, and it's really disappointing when we see a foster that can't follow the rules, especially for a dog that needs to lose weight. I know firsthand it is heartbreaking to not feed them as much as they want, because they will look at you like you're the meanest person on the planet, and it hurts. It's like, oh my gosh, I just want to make you happy, and the only way I can do that is with food. But you can't. Like, your job is to keep that dog healthy, especially medical rescue. So if you want to give them treats, that's fine, but you have to lessen their kibble. It's just a basic calorie math. So if you're going to give them a cup of kibble twice a day, and you're also going to give them a quarter cup of treats, pull a quarter cup of kibble out of that thing, or even a little more. And weigh them regularly if they're supposed to lose weight. Weigh them every week and see if you're on track. Don't let it go 2 months. Follow the treat guidelines. So basic rule of thumb is nothing that can cause a stomach obstruction or can break a tooth. So rawhide, pig ears, antlers are an absolute no. Actual bones, I don't care what people tell you about marrow bones, they can actually break a molar. You can give it to your own dog. We don't care what you do, as long as you pick it up and make sure the foster dog doesn't get it. We're not going to counsel you on how you treat your resident dogs. But anything that's like a crunchy biscuit that you could eat yourself or break off with your teeth is something that you can give the foster dogs. Okay, so training. I'm personally not a trainer. I also focus on senior rescues for the most part, because senior rescues oftentimes stay with me as hospice dogs and don't need training. But most of our fosters don't want the seniors because they can't handle the end result of that. So they take puppies or young dogs. In order of importance would be, actually, I should have crate training at the top of this, but so crate training is number one. That starts on day one. You feed them in the crate, you give them toys in the crate, you give them treats in the crate. Happy, happy, happy things happen in that crate. A dog that doesn't want anything to do with the crate will very quickly go, I want my dinner. I'm happy to go in there. Oh, she tossed a treat in there. Ooh, yum. Oh, my toys are in there. And they'll just, it doesn't become a punishment. It's just their happy place where happy things happen. Potty training can take a really long time. Do not expect to potty train a dog in 72 hours. I have my little 2-year-old pit bull right next to me, was a late bloomer, and we were finally potty trained at 14 months old. Was mommy happy about that? No, but we worked on it really hard. Foster dogs are usually way better than that, but especially puppies or the young dogs, or even dogs that are potty trained, sometimes when they come out of the shelter, they forget. So you have to retrain them over a weekend, and then they'll go, okay, yeah, I remember I'm not supposed to go in my area. Things that are great to do would be sit, stay, lie down, any of the basic manners commands, and then leash training is so helpful. If you have a dog that is all 4 of these things, or can do these plus the additional manners training, that dog's going to get adopted really quickly. So if your goal is to do something good and get them adopted, do this. And you can post to the page, or you can ask our trainer for tips on how to do some of these things, and we're there for you. Biggest challenge for a lot of fosters, and this is Norbert, who I adore, you do not actually get to pick the name. This is a big difference between NorCal and a lot of rescues and shelters who just don't care. All of our adoption promotion is done online, except for the one adoption event we have in person a month in Roseville. First and foremost, the names have to be marketable. So calling this guy Oreo, yeah, that's not that's a lot of dogs are named Oreo. So we sometimes we go with food names. Granted, Oreo is a food name, but it's not original. Old-timey names, unique names, they work to get dogs adopted. So examples of dogs that we've had were Norbert, Meep, Quincy, and Buggy. So what I tell all of the people that I mentor is come up with a list of 20 creative names, and I'll submit them and I'll see what the rescue says. But sometimes it's literally that many. So Norbert is like, he has a huge fan base, and it's a silly name, and they call him Bert at home, and they probably call him 15 other things. You can call your dog whatever you want at home, but publicly that dog has to have a marketable name. Okay, supplies. So we provide you with a lot, way more than any other rescue I've been to. So crates, food. We will provide you with beds if we know the dog is not going to eat it, but we'll give you bedding either way. So they might get a bunch of blankets instead of an actual bed. Meds, heartworm prevention, an initial supply of toys. That's important to know. Initial treats from time to time. We get treats donated. So if we have a surplus, you'll get plenty. And if we're slim, you'll probably get one bag that you'll just need to stretch. Collars, leashes, potty pads, detergent when we have it. Diapers if you have a diaper dog, or I have potty pads on there. Belly bands if you have an incontinent male dog, and Kongs and Nylabones. So, what are supplies not? They're not unlimited. It is not a shopping spree whenever you go to pick up supplies. We're not able to replenish something you're low on the same day. So if you're low on kibble, we get kibble from Costco donated. Sometimes it's donated, sometimes we have to buy it every other week. And sometimes the person who's helping us screws up the order and we might be low on it for a month. So we need at least a 10 days notice. I tell my fosters 2 weeks. And then you'll have to do another reminder closer to when you really need it for scheduling the pickup. And it's not a free for all. So we don't always have everything. We're a nonprofit. We're not loaded. And so, we don't want anybody abusing the supplies that you get. So if you're not keeping an eye on your foster and they're completely destroying toys in 3 minutes, we can't replenish, 5 toys a week just because maybe you're not picking the right toys. You can tell us, oh, it's a Destructo dog. I need some sturdier stuff, and we'll get you that. But if you're not paying attention to them and you're just letting them tear through stuff, we can't keep up with that. So important thing, and I have here in red, always check with your tax advisor on this and current tax law. However, as of my last update, there are a lot of things that are tax deductible for your foster. So I like cute dog beds in my house that are stylish, and so I buy my own. Because I want it to look cute. I'm neurotic. I buy a bunch of toys because I know exactly what my dogs like and I enjoy buying the toys. And I also buy special food for them that helps with digestion that's okay, that's been approved by the rescue, because I have seniors and I don't want my seniors with diarrhea all over my house. But it's all tax deductible, so it benefits me. But we don't expect anybody to buy anything. So it's not like you're doing us a favor if you do, because we do provide you with enough to give the dog a loving home with enough supplies to keep it safe and happy. We just don't have the means to let you spoil the ever living shit out of your foster dog every single day, every single hour. So if that's your choice and you want to go buy it, that's great. We'll love you for it, but we don't expect you to do it. And we also can't have you thinking that you're doing us a favor. So there's just a fine line in between there. So we're primarily a medical rescue. So I've mentioned this before, read the emergency guidelines, put them on your fridge if you need to, put them somewhere that everybody in your house can find them. If your dog is crashing and you can't get in touch with Leslie, you have to go to an approved vet on the list. I would always go to Vista. They're closer to me. They're off of 5 in Florin, and they're fantastic, and it is the preferred vet that we go to. They're also 24 hours, but if there's one that's closer to you and they're open and it's on the list, then you can go there. Leslie is usually able to get to an emergency pretty quickly, but I would say also let your mentor know what's going on if you have a mentor. So spaying and neutering, oh man, like if people spayed and neutered every dog, we would not have dogs dying in shelter as much as we do. That seriously, when people ask me, well, what would resolve like all of the problems in rescue, I say spaying and neutering, because a lot of the issues we have, especially around the bullies, is the backyard breeding. But our general philosophy is that every single dog that comes in and goes out of our rescue as an adopted dog has to be spayed or neutered, unless that surgery could kill the dog. So we're so serious about spaying and neutering that we spay and neuter over 160 dogs annually, of which at least 60 of them are community dogs, which means if you have a neighbor that like has mentioned to you, oh, I wish I could get my dog spayed, but they can't afford it, let us know because we'll just plug them into the community calendar and spay them for free or neuter them for free. My housekeeper's dog got neutered because I started to tell her that I couldn't have her bringing an intact male around my house anymore, and so they agreed to neuter their dog. So but it's a big deal to us. Like spaying and neutering really matters. It's a huge pain point in the rescue community. Okay, so we're starting to near toward you've had your dog for a while, you know who your dog is, and now your dog is ready for adoption. Um, so we have a formal adoption ad approval process. It's great. It's a little strict, but it's very, very, very effective. So taking photos and videos. So there's a special Facebook group for this that's separate from the main page. You would let your mentor know that you're ready. They would get in touch with me or one of the other people that runs the page, and we would add you onto that group through Facebook. And so we'll give you guidelines on photos and videos. So if you have an iPhone, look and see if you have portrait mode, and if you do, get used to it. You're going to love yourself because you're going to feel like a professional dog photographer the minute you start using portrait mode and natural light. Also, turn your phone sideways, not up and down vertically, but horizontally sideways anytime you're doing photos or videos, because it's much better if we have to go to reuse it. And start on the bio as soon as you figured out who your dog is. It asks simple questions like, what does your dog look like? And what kind of toys does your dog like? And does your dog like other dogs? Or how's your dog with cats or with kids? Don't wait until the last minute to start on that thing. Just have it be a work in progress. And when you're on this group and you submit everything, we'll correct you, or not, correct isn't the right word. We'll kind of coach you on improving it. If it's simple fixes, usually one of us just fixes the text really quick. But the photos is where it's a lot of back and forth, and it kind of frustrates some people. But ultimately, if your photos aren't good enough, your dog won't get adopted. But when the photos are good, they really draw in people. So, and if you're horrible at taking photos or you're not a very good writer, just be really honest up front and say, hey guys, my dog's ready for adoption, but I don't have portrait mode. I don't have a yard, and writing is not my strong suit. And we'll jump in and just get somebody over to do a photo shoot and write the bio. We just need your input on it. So photo examples. So on the left, that is Astro, and we had him on grass, but he's got Scooby-Doo with him. Picture would have looked great without Scooby-Doo. It just looks so much better with a toy. And he's a beautiful dog, but it's just a really cute picture because there's a toy in there in addition to just the grass. The middle photo, that is maybe one of the sweetest dogs I've ever met. His life was so sad before he got to us. This poor dog literally lived his whole life in the backyard digging holes for shelter, and his best friend was a mean chicken that used to bully him. He somehow in life went through 6 years of torture and is great with kids, which we show in that picture, and he's got a toy in his mouth. So I've got both a kid and a toy. And then we have the two characters on the right, so we can see that they're good with other dogs, and they're able to be tortured by props. But it's a holiday picture. So if you can do upcoming holiday themes or just any type of cute prop, maybe it's just like a unicorn horn or bunny ears or something, that stuff, people love that stuff. And so, but you can also see that the quality of the pictures, except for Biggie, who's in the middle, like I really should have been a bit lower, but the sunlight was hard that day. But we're at eye contact level with almost all of them. That's a big deal. Natural light really helps unless you have a setup like the photo on the right. But these were all done on an iPhone with portrait mode, and they look, especially the one of Astor on the left, like that really looks like a professional photographer took it. The picture on the left actually was taken by a 15-year-old. The first time we ever showed her how to do it. So understanding the adoption process, especially important if you know the people that are adopting, because there's a formal set of hoops that everybody has to jump through. And people who are not willing to do all of this are not worthy of one of our dogs. So number one, they have to apply online. The next thing that happens is they pass a yard check. They then connect with you, the foster. We set up a human meet and greet where just them come to your place or a common area to meet the dog. If they have a dog, then we schedule time with our trainer to do a dog meet and greet. Our trainer determines if they can move forward. If it's a go, then you have to collect a completed application from them and their payment, unless they've sent it through PayPal, in which case Leslie needs to confirm that she got it. They do not get to take custody of the dog without all of those steps being followed in that order, and the completed application and payment. So why does all of this matter? Well, number one, we don't let people do meet and greets with dogs unless they've gone through the first three steps. And that's because they have to apply. There are things on that application like, are they homeowners? Do they have a homeowners insurance company that isn't breed specific? We will not adopt to people that are renters because we end up getting all of those dogs back in a year and a half when they get evicted or have to move and can't find a place that takes dogs. Happens all the time. So we have some really strict things. We also look and we have some questions on there that kind of tell us, like, have you ever rehomed a dog before? Have you ever given up on one of your pets and had to have somebody else take care of it? And if so, why? And if it's, well, my son was terminally ill, okay, that's a big deal. But if it's, well, my boyfriend left and it's like it's some kind of drama story that it was a little too hard for them to keep doing it, that's probably not the kind of person we're going to give a dog to. Might not be the best example right there, but there are screening criteria on there, and we do not let them meet our dogs or waste your time if they haven't gone through those steps. What that also means is you can't go out of your way to let them meet the dog first. So unless they've applied and passed a yard check, and a lot of people, my God, the yard checks that I've gone to, um, it's like you'd think that they would patch up the giant hole in the fence before I showed up, with the scrap wood sitting 3 feet over, but they don't. So, and anybody who's that lazy that they're not patching up a perilous part of their yard for a dog that makes it a not secure yard, it's like, no, we don't want them as adopters. I mean, you won't know that from meeting a nice person that wants to pet and kiss your cute dog. So clarifications, the home does not have to be good as your home, but it's often better. And what do I mean by that? Personality fit. Like, you're obviously not foster failing on the dog. And so somebody else who wants that dog for who they are is probably just going to be a better family long term for the dog, even if their setup isn't as nice, or, maybe they don't take care of their lawn the way you wish they would. But if they pass the yard check and they've jumped through all the hoops, then we will send the dog, unless something sends off a bunch of red alarms to you. So if they're talking to you and they mention that they plan to do, this will be the only dog they have that's spayed or neutered because they plan to do a bunch of backyard breeding, that's a red flag, and you would let your mentor know or Leslie know, hey, I just heard something that was really concerning and kind of goes against the beliefs of the rescue. So it does hurt when your dog gets adopted, but the knowing what a great thing you did really, really matters, and it'll make you feel better. And fostering can become kind of addictive because you'll cry, you'll let go of your dog, and 24 hours later you'll see a plea for the cutest dog you've ever seen in your life, and you'll say, okay, we can do it. And I already mentioned this, but just a reminder that whoever's looking at your dog cannot take that dog without the signed agreement with payment. And then if they give you that, they can have their new baby. And if they don't, then you let them know to come back when they have it. So if you're going on vacation, most of our fosters watch each other's dogs. You could choose to have a pet sitter come over. It's what I do because I want my pet sitters watching my resident dogs, and they love my foster dogs. But fosters are willing to sit at your house. Like, I always offer to compensate somebody something if I'm going on vacation, but some of us just trade support. So we have a good support system, but don't spring it on us a day before you're going to leave. Give it about 3 weeks, if not more, and somebody usually steps up to help. Emergency contact information if you're gone. So send Leslie an email with whoever's house sitting the foster. Make sure they have Leslie's contact information and the guidelines for when to call her or contact her. And make sure if you're using a pet sitter that they fully understand the rules, especially around crating and treats and toys and all of the safety precautions that we take. So last section is puppies. So from left to right, that is Bella, that is Quincy, and that is Smokey. So again, look at how great those photos are. That is in portrait mode with natural light, with good eye contact close to eye level. Differences that are key between puppies and adult dogs. So once the puppies are past the parvo quarantine, they should be socialized with your resident dogs. So puppies are the only dogs that we let meet your dogs right away. So that quarantine time frame may change based on the recent pneumonia outbreak that we have, but a week to 10 days is usually a good enough time to keep everybody separated. And then we want them meeting your dogs because we want them to learn manners, and they learn things like bite inhibition from the big dogs who tell them off when they're being naughty. Let those older dogs correct them. As long as they aren't hurting the puppies, puppies will learn to not bite other dogs too hard, which also teaches them to not bite people too hard. Again, reminder, they can only touch the ground outside in your backyard and inside your house, not the front yard, not the street, not the shopping center. Even when we have adoption events, we put down like sheets and towels and like 50 pee pads in a pen because they're not allowed to touch the floor in the pet store. So socialize them, take them out in a stroller, or put them in a Home Depot shopping cart. Just check in with our trainer before you do that to make sure she's fine with it and make sure they don't touch the ground. And again, make sure people use hand sanitizer before petting them. If you have neighbors that are coming over, that's fine. Have them scrub the ever living hell out of their hands. So getting your puppy adopted. So you have a clock ticking. The minute that puppy gets spayed or neutered or gets their third parvo shot, the DHPP shot, of which there are 4, they have a small window of time because people want the baby face. And at about the 4-month mark, they start losing the baby face, believe it or not. Get a lot of bios and photos before they get spayed and neutered. So get the bio ready, get the photos ready, ask to be on the adoption page. And then, because it takes from the time somebody puts in an application, passes a yard check, and even gets to talk to you, it's usually like 4 to 5 days. So really important, try to train them on crate training, which is the easiest for puppies, potty training, and even just potty pad training can help. And then to sit. Most of our fosters are able to do the crate training and the sit. Potty training, nobody kind of expects a puppy to be potty trained, but we've seen some impressive ones. Smokey was one of them. So just in summary, thank you. I mean, this is a big deal to us when we get a new foster. Fostering is very emotionally rewarding, but we know it's not easy, and your willingness to even dip your toe in this is a big deal to us. So you have an opportunity to be a really informed person in the dog rescue community. Some of us have rescued close to 100 dogs, if not more. Those that do puppies have that count way higher. I'm personally around 60. But it's like I said, it's almost addicting because altruism is really truly rewarding when you're doing something for a helpless creature. It feels better than anything else. Be resourceful. If you hear something you're not familiar with, Google it. And if then you can't figure out, go ahead and ask, because a lot of times it's something that simple that might make you feel unsupported, but it's really just that everybody's volunteering their time in doing this. And if you can show a little resourcefulness, it's really appreciated. And be an active observer. So before you jump in and are heavily opinionated about something, just watch how our team kind of communicates with each other and kind of figure out how things work, and then go ahead and jump in when you've actually observed what's going on. So just in closing, I want to thank you for listening to me for the past, I'm assuming close to an hour. And again, your participation and your willingness to take this dog on is huge. It's a really big deal to us. We couldn't rescue without fosters, and hopefully this was informative. So thank you.